I found out about her in Singapore. Not from Yunseo. Not from Korong. From a woman named Lim Derry who worked in the Singapore branch and had transferred from Seoul headquarters exactly 2 years and 3 months ago, and who, when she saw my name on the new arrival list, went very quiet in a way that told me she recognized it. Not me specifically. The pattern. We became careful friends first. The kind you make in a new country when you are both far from home, and the loneliness of that creates an honesty that takes years to build anywhere else. She was warm and quiet, and had the kind of eyes that had seen something and decided to keep living anyway. We ate lunch together on the rooftop of the Singapore office and watched the city below, and talked about everything except the thing we were both circling. She brought it up on a Thursday evening. Of course it was a Thursday. We were in a small cafe near the office, rain coming down outside the glass, and she wrapped both hands around her cup and looked at me and said, "You worked under Kong Yunseo." Not a question. "Yes," I said.
"The top floor," she said.
My hands went still around my own cup. "Yes," I said again. She looked at the rain for a long moment. "Then you know about the room." "I know about the room," I said carefully. She nodded slowly. Something moved through her expression. Not pain exactly. Something older than pain. The specific quality of something that has been processed and filed, and is being reopened carefully for a specific purpose. "I was with her," she said quietly. "For 2 years. Not just the room. Everything." I looked at her. "You were her." "Her girlfriend," she said simply. Or the closest thing to it that Kong Yunseo would allow herself to have. The rain came down. The cafe was warm. "She loved me," Derry continued, in the tone of someone stating a fact they have made peace with. "In the way she is capable of loving, which is real and deep and also completely on her own terms. I understood that from the beginning. I chose it anyway." "What happened?" I asked quietly. She was quiet for a moment. "I was not built for that room," she said. "I want you to understand I chose it. I agreed to everything. I understood the rules. I went through every door with full awareness."
A pause.
"But there's a difference between choosing something and being built for it. And I learned that difference slowly, and then all at once." I listened. "It accumulated," she said. "Small things first. The structure of it, the control, the dynamic, it worked for her. She needed it. I understood why she needed it, and I genuinely wanted to give her that space." Her fingers tightened around her cup. But what she needed in that room, and what I needed outside of it, were two different things. And the longer it went on, the more those two things pulled against each other. "Did you tell her?" I asked. "Eventually," she said.
"Yes."
I told her I needed something softer. Something that didn't have a panel and a different door, and rules reviewed at the entrance. A pause. I told her I needed her to be someone she didn't know how to be. "How did she respond?" I said. Derry smiled. Small and genuine and sad. "She listened," she said. "Completely. The way she does." And then she said, "I cannot give you that, Daria. Not because I don't want to, because I don't know how. And I don't know if I ever will." The rain was softer now. "She let you go?" I said. "She let me go," Derry confirmed. "Cleanly. Without cruelty. With the specific honesty that is both her best quality and the reason loving her is the loneliest thing I have ever done." I thought about a lamp angled at an empty chair. I thought about walls built very deliberately and very permanently. I thought about Amber Eyes saying that is the problem with a crack in the composure that she had sealed before I was out of the building. "Are you okay?" I asked. The same question I had asked Seelha, in a different story, in a different life. Derry looked at the rain. "I am," she said. Genuinely. It took time. It took the city and this distance, and the specific mercy of starting over somewhere that didn't have a top floor with a different door.
She looked at me.
"Are you?" I thought about it honestly.
"Getting there," I said.
She reached across the table and briefly covered my hand with hers. Warm and certain and asking nothing. "Good," she said. And that word, good, landed somewhere completely different than it used to.
Softer.
Without weight. Without the specific gravity of a room on the top floor, and an amber gaze that cost too much. I was getting there. Bell, subscribe and stay with us. This is where I finally tell you what was in that room and what happened after. I've been asked in the months in Singapore what the room looked like. I have never answered fully. Not to Korong. Not to Derry. Not to the woman I am going to tell you about at the end of this chapter, because she deserves to be arrived at slowly and not rushed. But this is my story. And a story that leaves the room a mystery is not an honest story.
So,
The room was not what the word conjures. It was not dark. It was not frightening. It was warm, amber lit, and precisely organized, and it had the same quality as everything Kong Yunseo touched: deliberate, purposeful, nothing without a reason. The walls were a deep, warm charcoal. There was a low platform against one wall upholstered in dark leather, structured and firm. There were hooks at specific heights on the wall beside it, and from these hung items I will describe accurately because accuracy is the only kindness I can offer you. Soft restraints in dark leather with fleece lining on the inside, the kind that hold without hurting, designed with the specific intention of never leaving a mark that wasn't chosen. A blindfold in silk, folded precisely. A collection of items in a low cabinet with glass doors, small devices, various sizes, each in its own designated place, each with a clear purpose in the structured dynamic of what happened in this room. A thin wooden rod no longer than a ruler, smooth and balanced, that I understood without being told what it was for. And beside all of this, and this is the detail that stayed with me longest, a small notebook on a side table with a pen, where the rules were written clearly in Yunseo's precise handwriting, and beside the rules a second column where the agreed limits were noted in equal detail. The notebook told me more about Kong Yunseo than the room did, because the room was about control, but the notebook was about care. She had built a space where control was exercised within the most carefully documented safety I had ever seen. Every item chosen deliberately. Every boundary recorded. The care in that notebook was the same care as the angled lamp and the specific tea and the temperature adjusted before I arrived. She applied it to everything, even this. What I felt in that room was not what I expected to feel. I expected to feel confronted. I felt instead something closer to understood, not personally, but in the way of understanding a person's interior landscape more completely than their public face allows. I understood her exhaustion differently after that room. The weight of running everything, deciding everything, holding everything together, and needing somewhere to put that down. Not in weakness. In the specific structured release of someone who has too much control in every other room and needs one place where the architecture is different. I understood Derry differently too, because the room required something specific. A specific kind of strength. A specific kind of trust and surrender that is not available to everyone and should not be asked of everyone. I was not built for it either. I participated within the agreed limits, within the structure she had built so carefully, and I felt held in some ways and in other ways very far from what I actually needed, which was not control or its release, which was simply someone who would stay. I left the room knowing myself better and wanting something different. That is not nothing. That is actually something important. I met Seo Biryu 8 months into Singapore. She was a graphic designer in the Singapore office, warm brown skin and laugh lines already forming at the corners of her eyes at 31, the kind of person who filled a room not with volume, but with the specific warmth of someone who had decided people were worth showing up for. She asked me to lunch on a Tuesday. Not a Thursday. A Tuesday. That felt significant in a way I didn't explain to her for several months. She was patient in the way of someone who understood that people who have come from something difficult need time to arrive. She never pushed. She asked good questions and listened to the answers with her whole face. She remembered things I mentioned once and brought them back later with the casual naturalness of someone for whom paying attention is just how they love. She was not a closed door. She was not a structured room with reviewed rules. She was simply open. Consistently, patiently, warmly open. I fell in love with her the way I should have fallen the first time. Slowly, with full visibility. In the ordinary light of Tuesday lunches and Saturday markets, and the specific comfort of someone who makes you feel like your presence is the thing they were waiting for and not a problem to be carefully managed. I told her about Yunseo eventually. Not everything. Enough. She listened without performing understanding. Then she said, "She sounds like someone who knows exactly what she needs and cannot yet figure out how to need it without a door that locks." I looked at her. "That's very precise," I said. "I design things," she said simply. "I understand when something is built to keep people at exactly the right distance." I reached across the table and took her hand. She turned it over and held it properly. And something in my chest that had been holding itself very carefully since a Friday evening in Seoul finally, let go completely. I called Korong that night. She picked up on the second ring. She had always picked up on the second ring. "Hey Seoul SSI," she said warmly. "You sound different." "Different how?" I said. "Like someone whose voice has stopped carrying something heavy," she said. I looked across the apartment at Biryu making tea in the kitchen, warm brown skin in the lamplight, laugh lines, completely at home in a space that was becoming ours. "Yeah," I said quietly. "I think I put it down." "Good," Korong said. And that word, finally, truly, completely, landed exactly where it was supposed to. That is the full story. Every room, every door, every person who walked through one, and what they found on the other side. If this story meant something to you, drop a blue heart for Hazel, a yellow heart for Hansio, and a green heart for everyone who finally found someone who just stays. Subscribe for new GL stories every week. We love you.
Bell.